As someone deeply fascinated by the natural world and dedicated to the study of physics, I believe that both science and religion play crucial roles in expanding our understanding of existence. Science, through the rigor of mathematics and physics, provides us with the tools to uncover the underlying mechanics of the universe. It allows us to explore the vast complexities of space, time, and matter, revealing a structured elegance that speaks to the rationality of our cosmos. However, science alone does not answer all the questions about our existence. Religion and spirituality offer a different lens which we can understand our purpose and the moral frameworks that guide our actions. Einstein recognized this interplay, understanding that while science could explain the how of the universe, religion often addressed the why. As a physicist, I have come to appreciate the balance between empirical knowledge and the metaphysical questions that arise from it. The precise calculations of physics, the elegance of mathematical equations, and the vast theories of cosmology, while intellectually fulfilling, often lead to a sense of wonder that borders on the spiritual. This convergence of awe and understanding is where I believe science and religion meet, a shared quest for truth and meaning. One of the reasons I study physics is to explore this intersection, to understand not just the mechanisms of reality, but to ponder the deeper implications of our discoveries. How does the symmetry in nature reflect a deeper order? What does the interconnectedness of physical laws suggest about the nature of existence itself? That's what we are going to try to explore with this article of Albert Einstein on religion and science, originally published in the New York Times Magazine in 1930 and later in his books Ideas and Opinions and The World as I See It. Einstein's reflections offer a compelling argument for why science and religion, rather than being adversaries, can be seen as complementary forces in our quest for knowledge and meaning. We'll explore his thoughts on how religious experiences evolve, the role of cosmic religious feeling, and the idea that the highest principles of our aspirations can be rooted in a profound spiritual sensibility, even in a secular age. So, join me as we navigate Einstein's timeless wisdom and reflect on how his ideas continue to resonate in our contemporary discourse on science and spirituality. Let's get started. Part 1. During the last century and part of the one before, it was widely held that there was an unreconcilable conflict between knowledge and belief. The opinion prevailed among advanced minds that it was time that belief should be replaced increasingly by knowledge. Belief that did not itself rest on knowledge was superstition and as such had to be opposed. According to this conception, the sole function of education was to open the way to thinking and knowing, and the school as the outstanding organ for the people's education must serve that end exclusively. One will probably find, but rarely, if at all, the rationalistic standpoint expressed in such crass form. For any sensible man would see at once how one-sided is such a statement of the position. But it is just as well to state it is starkly and nakedly if one wants to clear up one's mind as to its nature. It is true that convictions can best be supported with experience and clear thinking. On this point, one must agree unreservedly with the extreme rationalist. The weak point of his conception is, however, this, that those convictions which are necessary and determinant for our conduct and judgment cannot be found solely along this solid scientific way. For the scientific method can teach us nothing else beyond how facts are related to and conditioned by each other. The aspiration towards such objective knowledge belongs to the highest of which man is capable, and you will certainly not suspect me of wishing to belittle the achievements and the heroic efforts of man in this sphere. Yet it is equally clear that knowledge of what is does not open the door directly to what should be. One can have the clearest and most complete knowledge of what is, and yet not being able to deduct from that what should be the goal of our human aspirations. Objective knowledge provides us with powerful instruments for the achievement of certain ends, but the ultimate goal itself and the longing to reach it must come from another source. And it is hardly necessary to argue for the view that our existence and our activity acquire meaning only by the setting up of such a goal and of corresponding values. The knowledge of truth as such is wonderful, but it is so little capable of acting as a guide that it cannot prove even the justification and the value of the aspiration towards that very knowledge of truth. Here we face therefore the limits of the purely rational conception of our existence. But it must not be assumed that intelligent thinking can play no part in the formation of the goal and of ethical judgments. When someone realizes that for the achievement of an end, certain means would be useful, the means itself thereby becomes an end. Intelligence makes clear to us the interrelation of means and ends. But mere thinking cannot give us a sense of the ultimate and fundamental ends. To make clear these fundamental ends and valuations and to set them fast in the emotional life of the individual seems to me precisely the most important function which religion has to perform in the social life of man. And if one asks whence derives the authority of such fundamental ends, since they cannot be stated and justified merely by reason, one can only answer, they exist in a healthy society as powerful traditions which act upon the conduct and aspirations and judgments of the individuals. They are there, that is, as something living, without it being necessary to find justification for their existence. They come into being not through demonstration, but through revelation, through the medium of powerful personalities. One must not attempt to justify them, but rather to sense their nature simply and clearly. The highest principles of our aspirations and judgments are given to us in the Jewish Christian religious tradition. It is a very high goal which, with our weak powers, we can reach only very inadequately, but which gives a sure foundation to our aspirations and valuations. If one were to take that goal out of its religious form and look merely at its purely human side, one might state it perhaps thus: free and responsible development of the individual, so that he might place his powers freely and gladly in the service of all mankind. There is no room in this for the divinization of a nation, of a class, let alone of an individual. Are we not all children of one Father, as it is said in religious language? Indeed, even the divinization of humanity as an abstract totality would not be in the spirit of that ideal. It is only to the individual that a soul is given, and the high destiny of the individual is to serve rather than to rule, or to impose himself in any other way. If one looks at the substance rather than at the form, then one can take these words as expressing also the fundamental democratic position. The true democrat can worship his nation as little as can the man who is religious, in our sense of the term. What then in all this is the function of education and of the school? They should help the young person to grow up in such a spirit that these fundamental principles should be to him as the air which he breathes. Teaching alone cannot do that. If one holds these high principles clearly before one's eyes and compares them with the life and spirit of our times, then it appears glaringly that civilized mankind finds itself at present in grave danger. In the totalitarian states, it is the rulers themselves who strive actually to destroy that spirit of humanity. In less threatened paths, it is the nationalism and intolerance, as well as the oppression of the individual by economic means, which threaten to choke these most precious traditions. A realization of how great is the danger is spreading, however, among thinking people, and there is much search for means with which to meet the danger. Means in the field of national and international politics, of legislation, or organization in general. Such efforts are, no doubt, greatly needed. Yet, the ancients knew something which we seem to have forgotten. All means prove but a blunt instrument if they have not behind them a living spirit. But if the longing for the achievement of the goal is powerfully alive within us, then shall we not lack the strength to find the means for reaching the goal and for translating it into deeds? Part 2. It would not be difficult to come to an agreement as to what we understand by science. Science is the century-old endeavor to bring together by means of systematic thought the perceptible phenomena of this world into a thoroughgoing and association as possible. To put it boldly, it is the attempt at the posterior reconstruction of existence by the process of conceptualization. But when asking myself what religion is, I cannot think of the answer so easily. And even after finding an answer which may satisfy me at this particular moment, I still remain convinced that I can never, under any circumstances, bring together, even to a slight extent, the thoughts of all those who have given this question serious consideration. At first then, instead of asking what religion is, I should prefer to ask what characterizes the aspirations of a person who gives me the impression of being religious. A person who is religiously enlightened appears to me as to be one who has, to the best of his ability, liberated himself from the fetters of his selfish desires and is preoccupied with thoughts, feelings, and aspirations to which he clings because of their superpersonal value. It seems to me that what is important is the force of this superpersonal content and the depth of the conviction concerning its overpowering meaningfulness, regardless of whether any attempt is made to unite this content with the divine being, for otherwise it would not be possible to count Buddha and Spinoza as religious personalities. Accordingly, a religious person is devout in the sense that he has no doubt of the significance and loftiness of those superpersonal objects and goals which neither require nor are capable of rational foundation. They exist with the same necessity and matter-of-factness as he himself. In this sense, religion is the age-old endeavor of mankind to become clearly and completely conscious of these values and goals and constantly to strengthen and extend their effect. If one conceives of religion and science, according to these definitions, then a conflict between them appears impossible. For science can only ascertain what is, but not what should be, and outside of its domain value, judgments of all kinds remain necessary. Religion, on the other hand, deals only with the evaluations of human thought and action. It cannot justifiably speak of facts and relationships between facts. According to this interpretation, the well-known conflicts between religion and science in the past must all be ascribed to a misapprehension of the situation which has been described. For example, a conflict arises when a religious community insists on the absolute truthfulness of all statements recorded in the Bible. This means that an intervention on the part of religion into the sphere of science. This is where the struggle of the church against the doctrines of Galileo and Darwin belongs. On the other hand, representatives of science have often made an attempt to arrive at fundamental judgments with respect to the values and ends on the basis of scientific method, and in this way have set themselves in opposition to religion. These conflicts have all sprung from fatal errors. Now, even though the realms of religion and science in themselves are clearly marked off from each other, nevertheless, there exists between the two strong reciprocal relationships and dependencies. Though religion may be that which determines the goal, it has nevertheless learned from science in the broadest sense, what means will contribute to the attainment of the goals it has set up. But science can only be created by those who are thoroughly imbued with the aspiration towards truth and understanding. This source of feeling, however, springs from the sphere of religion. To this, there also belongs the faith in the possibility that the regulations valid for the world of existence are rational, that is, comprehensible to reason. I cannot conceive of a genuine scientist without this profound faith. The situation may be expressed by an image. Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. Though I have asserted above that in truth a legitimate conflict between religion and science cannot exist, I must nevertheless qualify this assertion once again on an essential point with reference to the actual content of historical religions. This qualification has to do with the conception of God. During the youthful period of mankind's spiritual evolution, human fantasy created gods in man's own image who, by the operations of their will, were supposed to determine or, at any rate, to influence the phenomenal world. Man sought to alter the disposition of these gods in his own favor by means of magic and prayer. The idea of God in the religious thought at present is a sublimation of that old conception of the gods. Its anthropomorphic character is known, for instance, by the fact that men appeal to the divine being in prayers and plead for the fulfillment of their wishes. Nobody certainly will deny that the idea of the existence of an omnipotent, just, and omnibeneficent personal God is able to accord man solace, help, and guidance. Also, by virtue of its simplicity, it is accessible to the most undeveloped mind. But on the other hand, there are decisive weaknesses attached to this idea in itself, which have been painfully felt since the beginning of history. That is, if this being is omnipotent, then every occurrence, including every human action, every human thought, and every human feeling and aspiration is also his work. How is it possible to think of holding men responsible for their deeds and thoughts before such an almighty being? In giving out punishment and rewards, he would to a certain extent be passing judgment on himself. How can this be combined with the goodness and righteousness ascribed to him? The main source of the present-day conflicts between the spheres of religion and science lies in this conception of a personal God. It is the aim of science to establish general rules which determine the reciprocal connection of objects and events in time and space. For these rules or laws of nature, absolutely general validity is required, not proven. It is mainly a program, and faith in the possibility of its accomplishment in principle is only founded on partial successes. But hardly anyone could be found who could deny these partial successes and ascribe them to human self-deception. The fact that on the basis of such laws we are able to predict the temporal behavior of phenomena in certain domains with great precision and certainty is deeply embedded in the consciousness of the modern man, even though he may have grasped very little of the contents of those laws. He need only consider that planetary courses within the solar system may be calculated in advance with great exactitude on the basis of a limited number of simple laws. In a similar way, though not with the same precision, it is possible to calculate in advance the mode of operation of an electric motor, a transmission system, or of a wireless apparatus, even when dealing with a novel development. To be sure, when the number of factors coming into play in a phenomenological complex is too large, scientific method in most cases fails us. One need only think of the weather, in which case prediction even for a few days ahead is impossible. Nevertheless, no one doubts that we are confronted with a causal connection whose causal components are in the main known to us. Occurrences in this domain are beyond the reach of exact prediction because of the variety of factors in operation, not because of any lack of order in nature. We have penetrated far less deeply into the regularities obtaining within the realm of living things, but deeply enough, nevertheless, to sense at least the rule of fixed necessity. One need only think of the systematic order in heredity and in the effect of poisons, as for instance alcohol, on the behavior of organic beings. What is still lacking here is a grasp of connections of profound generality, but not a knowledge of order in itself. The more a man is imbued with the ordered regularity of all events, the firmer becomes his conviction that there is no room left by the side of his ordered regularity for causes of a different nature. For him, neither the rule of human nor the rule of divine will exist as an independent cause of natural events. To be sure, the doctrine of a personal God interfering with natural events could never be refuted in the real sense by science, for this doctrine can always take refuge in those domains in which scientific knowledge has not yet been able to set foot. But I am persuaded that such behavior on the part of the representatives of religion would not only be unworthy but also fatal. For a doctrine which is able to maintain itself not in a clear light but only in the dark will of necessity lose its effect on mankind, with incalculable harm to human progress. In their struggle for the ethical good, teachers of religion must have the stature to give up the doctrine of a personal God, that is, give up that source of fear and hope which in the past placed such vast power in the hands of priests. In their labors, they will have to avail themselves of those forces which are capable of cultivating the good, the true, and the beautiful in humanity itself. This thought is, to be sure, a more difficult but an incomparably more worthy task. After religious teachers accomplish the refining process indicated, they will surely recognize with joy that true religion has been ennobled and made more profound by scientific knowledge. If it is one of the goals of religion to liberate mankind as far as possible from the bondage of egocentric cravings, desires, and fears, scientific reasoning can aid religion in yet another sense. Although it is true that it is the goal of science to discover rules which permit the association and foretelling of facts, this is not its only aim. It also seeks to reduce the connections discovered to the smallest possible number of mutually independent conceptual elements. It is in this striving after the rational unification of the manifold that it encounters its greatest successes, even though it is precisely this attempt which causes it to run the greatest risk of falling a prey to illusions. But whoever has undergone the intense experience of successful advances made in this domain is moved by profound reverence for the irrationality made by manifest in existence. By way of the understanding, he achieves a far-reaching emancipation from the shackles of personal hopes and desires, and thereby attains that humble attitude of mind towards the grandeur of reason incarnate in existence, and which, in its profounded depths, is inaccessible to man. This attitude, however, appears to me to be religious in the highest sense of the word. And so it seems to me that science not only purifies the religious impulse of the dross of its anthropomorphism, but also contributes to a religious spiritualization of our understanding of life. The further the spiritual evolution of mankind advances, the more certain it seems to me that the path of genuine religiosity does not lie through the fear of life and the fear of death and blind faith, but through striving after rational knowledge. In this sense, I believe that the priest must become a teacher if he wishes to do justice to his lofty educational mission.